Hello, Markus. Good morning.
Hello, Ashkan.
I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too.
So I've been recently thinking about uh, something that's very common these days. Uh, I've experienced it personally, and I'm involved with this professionally. And I had a conversation with you that I thought might be useful for some other people as well. And it's about what we call nowadays uh, ADHD. Uh, some people call it like attention disorder or deficit, like it's a problem that needs to be reduced or managed or controlled by psychiatric medicine, having taking some pills, and to manage it somehow. But I know you have a different view on this. In your experience with it, it's been interesting.
Yeah,
Do you want to say a little bit more about
I do. Glad you asked.
it?
So, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. It's one way to name it. But as a phenomenologist, I tend to just ask, well, what are you noticing? And very person specific, moment specific, situation specific naming. I work up, I developed this process called name it, claim it, and aim it. So what you name it's important because then you're going to claim it as your own. So you really need to resonate with what you're naming it. So rather than just adopting it and you know getting help from the outside on how to respond to this diagnosis, but I don't think of myself as alternative. I have another perspective, and think in the spirit of uh, sort of the academic spirit. I've taught at a university for almost 25 years. It's to enter into discourse. It's not a debate, which is better, but just a discourse on, oh, that's interesting. From my perspective or my experience, this is what I've discovered. So, um, so my perspective and in my experience, what I've discovered is that folks who are, come to name their challenge as ADHD have benefited by sort of the expressive arts therapies reframe to having a very, very, very large play range,
Mm.
many levels of awareness that they could move into, and many areas. So it's not just areas. It's not just about being distracted. It's about having dexterity to be able to move into different areas and have that dexterity to shift to different levels appropriate to the constantly changing requirement of the moment.
Uh-huh. Hmm. So you have also experienced it personally, and do you think that's one of the reasons you benefit from this work and this approach the most?
Yeah, I mean, I had trouble staying in my seat and concentrating in school, um, but no one diagnosed it.
Hmm.
the teacher would send notes home to my mother that I have trouble staying in my seat. And if something didn't capture my imagination as I got older in high school, if it didn't capture my imagination, if it didn't touch me, I couldn't connect. When I got into college and studied theater and other things as well, everything shifted for me because my heart was in it. So I learned a lot that if my heart is in something, my mind is not easily distracted. I don't have all of the problems associated with ADHD if I'm rooted in something more deeply rooted in something that I care about and that I love. So eventually that led me to studying expressive arts therapy, getting my degree, getting a second degree, getting my doctorate, because I really wanted to stay with understanding how this works and how I changed. And I don't know if I'd use the word healed, but I found a way to make that problem an incredible resource. I have a lot of agility in my mind, in my heart, in my body, because I could just shift very quickly. I can facilitate 100 people in a room easily. I'm aware of many levels of things happening at the same time, many areas happening at the same time, and I don't get overwhelmed because that's comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one part of it in expressive arts is when you set the frame, when you help people absorb or connect with what's within them. And it's very unique for each person. So when it's happening on different levels at the same time, and I have to focus and I have to absorb, but it's difficult for me to stay connected, is to stay focused. Then you have to connect with me on another level that makes it easier for me.
Right. So what you're saying is you've also been aware of something that you could all call ADHD in yourself.
I can say sometimes, because as you said, I have also experienced times that I'm very much focused and totally absorbed in something. But I can be multitasking, and sometimes it's hard for me to focus. Sometimes I find myself very much distracted.
Yeah, and that's when I talk about dexterity, just shift your focus. Don't call it a distraction. Just say, I want to shift my focus, and maybe you'll shift your focus for 30 seconds, and that'll be enough, or for 2 hours, and then come back. A more playful relationship with taking care of the tasks at hand, and a more playful relationship with time and space, I think, is helpful.
Mm.
This thing, well, I should do this, and then something quite organic in not making up a story in our head about what the priority is, and just see where is my pull. One of my favorite theories is the self-organizing principle of the chaos theory, that something's wanting to happen here, just take your hands off, and there are attractors in our lives, and things will self-organize around those attractors. So you're doing something, but there's an attractor that's more appealing, and then you'll start to self-organize around that. And I would say, people talk about managing that, but I don't manage it. I just like it. I enjoy it. And I think that's the key for me and how I work as an expressive arts therapist or a coach or an educator, is to just pay attention to your capacity for incredible enjoyment of your agility. not just sort of coping with or making peace with the challenges, but actually finding a way to find the joy of your way of living.
Yeah. When you just described it, it's really me how I self-organized and how I absorb myself in things I want to do. It's always something, and then something attracts me, and then something attracts me. And it's, I would say, it's difficult when I want to push myself to integrate some, integrate or to organize my mind before the time that I'm ready for it. Sometimes it takes time to be ready for integration of things that are apart.
Yes. And that's why the phenomenon of relaxation is essential in all of this. And as long as I'm relaxed, I can have that playful dexterity. But if I'm anxious and I'm concerned about what I have to do, I'm going to skip the first priority with how am I going to be in this? So if I go right to I have to do this, I have to do this, shh. First things first. How am I being in this? Am I being in a place of sweet, quiet enjoyment, or am I in a place of, oh, I should, and feeling anxious and pressure and
Yeah.
So this idea of ready making is important, and trust that I'll get there. I'm sort of in this ready making, and some people are quick and direct, and others are slow and indirect, and in between, and sometimes I'm quick and direct, and sometimes I'm slow and direct, and sometimes I'm quick and very indirect. I'm shopping in the store for food, and oh, we go there,
Yeah.
my list, but I don't actually go down the list like this, and slow and indirect. I think my life in general is kind of slow and indirect. Oh, this is opening up. That's interesting, and explore something new, and while taking care of something that's been around a long time. The quality of my time with my wife doesn't have to suffer just because I'm enjoying all these other projects. This is kind of, okay, now I come back to this and move into that and let that go. And this is emerging as a kind of a glorious awareness of how many streams there are in our awareness. And we can sort of jump into a stream at any time. So rather than this idea of attention deficit or I'm hyperactive, just say I have so much awareness of all the different streams that are moving simultaneously, and I can shift into any one of those streams at any time and shift out again and accomplish a lot in a day joyfully.
That's much more enjoyable when you think of it like that. Then you're more relaxed to just enjoy it, to enjoy the process, and to just let yourself lead yourself, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, a very common expression these days is trust the process, but I would say that where I'm coming from is more the point, trust where you're coming from. If you're coming from a place of loving life and wanting to just enjoy it all, then you have to make peace with the level of playfulness you're going to need to enjoy it all. So before I can trust the process, I need to trust me and where I'm coming from, and believe in what matters to me, and that I'm not just rationalizing my hyperactivity or my attention deficit. I'm not just rationalizing it. I'm actually knowing the goodness of it, and not just making the best of it, but celebrating this incredible capacity to have vitality in many levels and many areas in a day.
Yeah.
But it does require relaxing. I would say that's my first priority. Relax so that you can respond. Relax so you can respond to what's moving inside that requires attention, or moving what's happening between another human being or me and the larger picture, that ability to respond to what's moving within me or between us or around us. That ability to respond is what shapes my day.
Now it reminds me of something we talk about usually, about setting the frame. And when this frame can be set too tight, or it can be moving or expanding. And that in these sort of experiences we are talking about now, I find it like what makes it difficult if you're not relaxed is to shift the frame from a certain shape to another shape when you're not ready.
Yes. It's cultivating the capacity to know when something requires a hard frame. If you have a deadline, you say, okay, and not fight it. Say, okay, this is a hard frame. I need to have this done by the day after tomorrow. And that's it. Hard frame. Or, I can have a soft frame. If I get to it this week, that's fine. If not, that's okay. Because it really is okay. It's not convincing yourself that it's okay, but to actually say, this requires a hard frame. Okay. There's a reasonableness to it. And say, wow, I could have a really soft frame about this. Yeah, it's okay. And everything in between. So, how to frame what we're doing at any given moment. Sometimes is subconscious, but sometimes it can be quite conscious to say, I would like to really relax around this, and I will get to it eventually. And so that's not only trusting the process, it's trusting the depth of sincerity that you're coming from, to believe that you're not just rationalizing. It is true that there is no rush for this, and it is true that you need to do this by the day after tomorrow. So part of being creative for me is having a very good sense of how to set a frame. When I tell my wife dinner's at 6, I really like to have it ready by 6. And if I think it'll be between 6 and 6:15, I'll say that. Because also, if I'm cooking it and it's hot, I want her to be available and say, no, I'll just be another 10 minutes. But it's hot. I want you to have it now. So I set a harder frame also, so that she's clear that whatever she's doing, she's going to need to shift her focus, because I prepared a hot meal. I'm the cook in the house. Because I like it. This is such a good example of, I love all of the parts of that, except cleanup. And Leela absolutely has no problem. She's like, like, oh, she's into it. She loves getting it all clean and everything, and it's beautiful. So rather than saying, oh, I'm too ADHD to clean up, I say, oh, isn't that lovely that I am really into this and you're into that, and a kind of celebrating the range of abilities we have, and making peace with our limitations. You've got to have both. I cannot just love my ability to do so much. If I only do that, I have a problem when I have a limitation. But I have really, I've had a lot of years to make peace with my limitations. And actually, I bring that to the work of expressive arts therapy quite a bit to help people to do what they can and make peace with their
Yeah.
limitations. And that there's joy in both. Like, wow, the joy of saying, I'll let you do that. When, it just doesn't
Yeah.
get your mojo going. So celebrate your range and make peace with things that say, maybe not that. And people who force themselves to do things that they don't really resonate with will have problems.
Yeah.
So I think the work of expressive arts therapy has something to do with recognize the difference when you're doing something that resonates and nurtures you, and when you're doing something because you should, and there really isn't very much nurture. Because sometimes there are things you just have to do. So, but just be aware of the difference between the two, and it's often significant between what nurtures you and what doesn't, and how much time do you spend in the day. Like sometimes I do a workshop and a person will realize that the way they love to move is slow and direct, and most of their day is quick and indirect. They're taking care of the kids and going shopping and picking up this one from soccer. Their day is like this, but where the deep nurture is actually slow and direct. And they become quite touched. And they know they can't change their outside circumstances completely, but they can make sure that they have more balance. And so take care of the time that they need to be slow and direct, so that in the times that they have to be quick and indirect, it's not just that in the day.
Yeah. And then maybe gradually opening up more space outside for that slow and direct movement.
Yes, the dexterity of awareness embodied. To have a lot of dexterity in your awareness of how to be in a flow in an embodied way. And again, that's the work of the expressive arts therapy is, it's great to have an insight, but unless it's embodied, not going to happen. You're not going to see change if you have an insight that isn't embodied. And that's what we call a shift. You actually shift into a different way of being when a significant insight is embodied, and say, whoa, see, I really need to have a balanced day and make sure I have quiet, slow, direct time. And it's not just an insight, like they feel it in their bodies. They know it in an embodied way. That change is necessary for me to live a life that's sustainable.
So thank you, Markus, for this talk today. I've enjoyed as always.
Yes. Being part of being playful is to give thought to what nurtures us and what matters to us, and to playfully move into a realm of thought. It's different thinking about something. We weren't thinking about something. We moved into a playground with thought. And it can be just as delightful as making a painting or a dance or a poem for us to co-create this exploring, opening up what some people call ADHD. And then we moved into a few other things. And it's healthy to take care of the intellect, to think about, to give thought to what nurtures us and how to go forward.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Ashkan.
Thank you.
See you soon.
See you.